Hi, my name's Kim Ross. I'm a psychologist, and one of my passions is self-care. But not just any self-care. I use the term fierce self-care. And I thought today would be a good opportunity for us to have a little chat. But we're not actually talking, and that's the weird thing about recording, podcasts and videos. You're not actually there. So to do this, I channel some of the people in my life who are super important to me, some of whom are therapists, some of who aren't, and also the person I used to be and the person I am. Because engaging in fierce self-care is not done, tick it off, let's move on to the next online course or online resource. It's a very living thing. And it comes to the first thing that we're going to talk about today, about what fierce self-care is. We're also going to look at, why it matters, why it's important, and what the complexity of it can look like. And then I'll share a little bit about some ways you can either, work with me or, and, what that might look like. It's a simple process, not a complex process. All right. Self-care is complex enough, so let's try and keep this as simple as possible. So let's look at the word fierce. If we take that away and we just have but if we have self-care by itself, it's been a little bit demonized because it's a tricky concept and it means taking care of your mental and physical health. But it's been co-opted by things like, chocolate, bubble baths, spas, retreats, massages, which are all fantastic. And in a previous life, I did train and work for a short while as a massage therapist. So, massage, fantastic thing to do. But all those things we talked about, they're kind of, one-offs, or they have a little bit of a luxury around them. And they're not always accessible all the time. I mean, as much as I'd love to go off and, spend 3 days on a retreat or a week in Bali or something like that, there's the cost. And that is a factor for a lot of us. The cost of things matters, particularly when you have a family, you have children, or you've got an established business. And, I know when you can't afford to do those things, because there's other things that you need to put those resources into, that can lead to guilt and shame and an incongruence of perhaps believing in self-care and feeling that you can't do it. As I said, it's a complex thing. So let's put fierce in front of it. And the word fierce, here I'm going to put a few adjectives out there and they're a really good reflection of why I choose the word fierce. Dynamic. It's dynamic. So fierce self-care is responsive and proactive and intentional and intuitive. It's a dynamic, flexible, fluid thing. Committed. Fierce self-care is committed self-care. You're turning up, you're doing the things, you're creating the habits, and then you're going back to the habits, because habits are slippery suckers. And I don't know about you, but I have really good habit going of something like yoga or drinking water. And then, a few weeks go by and I'm like, I'm not doing that thing. And even when you're a therapist and you know the tricks, because changing behaviour is such a key thing of what we do, we know the tricks, chaining behaviour, using the pre-mate principle and putting it with something you usually do. Environmental cues. So having the yoga mat there, having the video linked up, or doing it with a partner, or making the commitment. Even with the best of intentions, things happen, habits drop off, but we come back to them. So fierce self-care is coming back to the things that you've chosen that matter, that work in your life. All right? Fierce self-care is passionate self-care. There are elements in self-care that you're going to love to do, and that you know make a huge difference in your life and how you live your life. And that might be for you saving up, doing that weekend retreat. It might be meeting up with friends. It might be having this half hour in the morning or this protected time, or whatever you decide, whatever you carve out for you, there's a passion about it. It's not just a chore. It's not just something that gets stuck on the end of your to-do list, or that you're squishing in the corners because you have to do it. And if you don't do it, you're a really bad therapist because you're not modeling self-care. Fierce self-care comes from the heart. It's assertive. Fierce self-care is assertive self-care. A lot of this is tied up with boundaries and people-pleasing, and standing up for your rights, knowing your rights, standing up for them. Your right to make choices, your right to have an opinion, your right to look after yourself, your right to your time, the right to set limits around client interaction, the right to choose your niche in what you want to work in. But it's assertive. No, it's a fierce self-care. It's assertive, and it's bold. It's clear. It's direct. Okay, so there's some of the adjectives around why I choose to talk about fierce self-care. Yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts on that one. Now, why does it matter? Why does self-care matter? I mean, we're busy. We have responsibilities. We have people depending on us. We have, clients and children and bills and all these responsibilities. And depending on your background, you're going to feel this urge to people please above all else, more so or less so. And then depending on your religion, so for example, if you're Catholic, like I grew up Catholic, that comes with a huge serve of guilt and self-sacrifice. Now, one of the things that, just a bit of an aside, when I think about that, I think about Mother Teresa and how she is held up as a paragon of virtue and sacrifice and an amazing human being. But she had time off. She got breaks. She had holidays. It wasn't 24/7, 365 days a year for the whole of her life. Right? So, we're all entitled. You're entitled to rest. Right? So, yes, so your well-being matters. Your self-care matters. Your mental and physical health matters. There is nothing wrong. It's a wonderful value to want to help others and please others. But like anything, we can take it to an extreme. And when we give and give and give, and we're not putting aside that for ourselves, it can lead to things like, not just lack of energy, but also, resentment. It can lead to people trampling over your rights and that assertion part not really happening for you. And it's so interesting how assertive behaviours manifest and don't manifest in people. But that's for another podcast. So let's look at why it matters, looking after your mental and physical health. It matters because you matter. Your feelings are important. Your relationships are important. Your income's important. Having a sustainable private practice or a sustainable career as a therapist that you've worked so hard for matters. So if you don't do this, I know we talk about how this can lead, and it can lead to burnout. Now, you mightn't get to burnout, but it can lead to a pretty miserable existence. It can lead to ill health. If you're neglecting physical checkups, if you're neglecting your exercise and, looking after yourself, you can get sick. So not just burnout, but illness. Therefore, loss of income, impact on family, relationships, and being a caregiver, all those things. So let's have a reminder of what burnout is. All right? So, it's a proper definition that, WHO put out in 2019 that they released a definition, and they talked about it as a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that hasn't been successfully managed. So it's ongoing stress that hasn't been managed. And this is workplace. We also talk about parental burnout, but we're not talking about that either. So it's a long term. It's not an acute response. It's chronic. And it's a bit like, the frog in the boiling water, that you don't notice that the water's getting hotter and hotter until it gets to that point. And you don't notice if you're not taking the temperature as you go. Fierce self-care and checking in go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. And when we're looking at, about 50% of therapists will experience burnout. I mean, that's a lot. I got told the other day that the dropout rate for new grads for physios is about 50% in the first 5 years. And it wouldn't surprise me if that was similar to us. It's not exclusive. Burnout is not exclusive to therapists, but you're in a unique position that, other professions don't have to deal with. Right? And I've spoken about that before. I can link to a recording or blog on that. If you're interested, just give me a holler if I don't put it in the comments. Now, best intentions sometimes doesn't always happen. As you know, this is a one-person show, and sometimes the show gets derailed. That's okay. And just the 6 key domains that correlate with burnout according to work overload, too much to do, too little, too few resources, lack of control, reward, particularly inequity of reward, which comes under fairness, community, conflict of values. And the values is quite a big one. I'm about to look at some of the foundational aspects of self-care, and values and meaning is one of those. Let's dive into that. Okay, where are we? With the foundations of self-care, I look at it into 5 different areas, and these are areas that come from, the work we've done in positive psychology and what we know contributes to your well-being, your optimal health. And that includes, physical, cognitive, emotional, or mind, body, heart, connection and meaning. So if we look at meaning and values, what does fierce self-care look like in that realm? I'm just going to go through a couple of examples. So fierce self-care is being true to yourself and authentic to yourself, knowing your values, knowing what matters to you, and choosing to embody that in how you do your work and how you live your life. Now, that's not easy. It is not always easy. So we have cost versus the freedom of doing that. So making those decisions and choosing how you embody, that takes determination. It takes clarity and commitment. It's fierce. Now let's look at connection. So connection is another domain of fierce self-care. And that's with yourself, with others, the world around you. A big part of that is being honest with yourself, braving anxiety, braving the chance of rejection, taking the time and energy into relationships. Fierce. Cognition. So looking after your brain, looking after your mind, and one of the big things in society today is focus and being able to concentrate and attend to things and analyze things. And we're living in a culture that's full of distractions and pulling us away from that deeper thinking. Now we have AI, which wants to do some of that thinking for us. And, there's an argument there around, how are we tapping into our creativity and where are people doing that deeper thinking? I created a creating connection circle. And one of the reasons I did that was because I miss having someone around me in a workplace, in an academic environment, to talk about things with, to challenge my thinking. I love that, thinking being challenged and having those types of conversations. You have to really search it out. You have to seek it out. Otherwise, we're lost. We're lost to the pool of distraction and surface thinking. And I'm as guilty as that, guilty of anyone. That's a difficult thing to do. It's a commitment. It's a discipline. It's fierce self-care. Emotional. So where and how do we feel our emotional buckets, and where does the ferocity come into that? Feeling your feelings is not for the faint-hearted. I mean, you know it. How many clients do you have that come to you and you're helping them get in touch, building a different relationship with their feelings, not being scared of their feelings, working out, what to do with them. Practicing forgiveness. That doesn't come easy. Practicing gratitude, particularly when we live in a FOMO society. You've only got to scroll social media to have these little gremlins come into your mind about, what you're missing out on, and that feeling of, resentment or envy or, discontent. Combating that, practicing acceptance and gratitude, not always easy, hey? And I should have mentioned with the cognition, awareness, practicing awareness. This. Physical. Well, that's obvious. Physical is one of the most, obvious aspects of self-care. People go, you need to walk, sleep, eat, all the basics, which are crucial. They're crucial to getting the physiological blocks right to build on everything else. But not easy. Fierce. Because junk food, remote controls, loss of incidental exercise, encouragement to stay inside and game. So you're missing, being outdoors and moving, making an effort to move. We make appointments to move. We schedule it in. Otherwise, you're sitting at your desk all day, hunched over. All right? So it's a commitment. So what I've done is I've, just given you a tiny bit of an insight into those 5 different areas and why they need fierce self-care. And where I like to come in and what I'm offering you is support around implementing fierce self-care in your life. Now, there's a process, and the biggest process that you start with, or the first step, is checking in. How am I going? How well are you coping? Where are you at with all these areas? Do you understand them? Are you ticking off the boxes? Are you incorporating them into your life? Now, I talked about them being fierce and committed. It doesn't mean we can't make them simple. There are so many things you can do so you can embody self-care, particularly in regards to, emotional self-care and cognitive self-care and physical self-care. We can actually embody all of this, but you can't do it all at once. And it's so difficult to do by yourself, particularly because you're working in a profession where you're constantly pulled to fulfill other people's needs. So you check in. And once you've got that, and we go through a process of this is how you can check in. You can get a number baseline. You can check in once a day, weekly, hourly, on a loop. Different ways of managing checking in, different ways of doing it. And just like with clients, some people will prefer words, some people will prefer, colours or numbers. Then once you've checked in and you've worked out what you want to do and what suits your life, it's keeping it in mind. It's getting that support to keep it forefront of mind. Because we create habits, great habits, and as I said, then after a while you kind of go, why aren't I doing that anymore? So the one habit that I do keep up is my walking. It's the commitment that I make to myself, and basically 99% of the days it happens. I get out and I walk, and it's done before this particular time, whether it's, depending on the day, whether it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, this is done by this day. But a lot of the other habits, they come and go. And if we look at the, behavioural health cycle of change, relapse is normal. You relapse and you come back up and you pick it up in the cycle and you start again and you consolidate. And then you relapse and you come back in and you work out what went wrong. You find out ways and problem solve around the barriers, and you come back into the self-care circle. So what I want to help you do is, dive a little bit deeper into these aspects of self-care, work out what works best for you in terms of checking in, and what strategies, self-care strategies work best for you, how they're going to fit in your life. And that can be things that you already do, but we just tweak how, when, where, who, that sort of thing. There might be brand new strategies, things you haven't worked on before, like self-compassion and gratitude and forgiveness, or, a different way of eating. So behavioural habits around eating, or, how to incorporate more movement. So whatever aspects we've identified as kind of being deficits, we can target those. And I can help you shore them up. Or perhaps you've got it down pat, but you do keep slipping and sliding. Then we can work out, a supportive partnership around that to help you when you slide, or to look at what barriers, what things are getting in the way, whether it's environmental or psychological or something else going on. So wherever you're at in this journey, it can help. One of the things that you might be interested in is I'm starting it up, very low cost. I think it's going to be about, $12 a month. And it's a weekly email support. And it's one focus for that week, whereby there's one point that's uppermost in your mind. And it's a reminder. This is what I'm working on today. This is what I'm working on this week. This is my focus. And that'll change each week. So it's a supportive prompt that you can use. But anyway, stay tuned for more information about that. Let me know if you're interested, and I can put you on the early information list about that one. All right. So I feel like we've gone in a big circle today. This has been a bit of a big overview session rather than a deep dive, because I talk a lot about fierce self-care, and it's like, I want you to know what this is. I want you to understand that you're not alone in self-care, not just happening by osmosis because you understand all the things you should be doing. Maybe you don't, maybe there's gaps, but there's a lot of guilt and stigma around therapists when it comes to self-care, and being able to put your hand up and go, you know what, this isn't working. It's not working for me. I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm anxious, I feel burned out, I'm worried I'm going to burn out. I need some help. And it's not supervision, and it's not something you want to talk to your boss about, because it's not about really just about work or just about clients. It's a crossover. It could be stuff coming from home that's impacting. So, right, that's what we can do. We can work out where it's coming from, what's working and what's not working. So there you go. Let me know if you found this useful. Any follow-up questions or something you'd like me to talk about, please let me know, because I'd love to grab that and run with it and, create something to help you on this front. All right. If this interests you and you're not on my email list, let me know. I'll put a link in somewhere, wherever this is, on the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, there are links to join up for the email subscription list. And if you're listening to this on podcast and you like it, leave me a review. It's great. It helps other people find it. And other than that, I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening.